Welcome to the Coins channel, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that a simple 5-cent piece from 2015, something you might have tossed into a tip jar or left forgotten in your car's cup holder, could actually be worth a staggering $668 million? Yes, you heard that right, not $600, not $6,000, but $668 million, an amount so astronomical that it sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. Yet this is the reality of the 2015 P Jefferson nickel, a coin that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and left collectors around the world scrambling to check every nickel they can get their hands on. This isn't just about money. This is about the intersection of history, human error, and the kind of lightning-in-a-bottle luck that most people only dream about. And before we dive deep into why this particular nickel has become the holy grail of modern coin collecting, I need you to do something for me. Stay with me until the very end of this video because after we unpack the incredible story of this 2015 treasure, I'm going to reveal not one but two more Jefferson nickels that have values so mind-blowing, so utterly jaw-dropping, that you'll be racing to check your own coin jars the moment this video ends. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming because the coins we're about to discuss after this one will make you question every time you ever spent a nickel without a second thought. Now, let's get into the heart of the story. The 2015 P Jefferson nickel, minted in Philadelphia as indicated by that small P mint mark, was produced in massive quantities like most modern circulation coins, with hundreds of millions rolling off the presses to meet the everyday needs of commerce across America, and under normal circumstances, a 2015 nickel would be worth exactly what it says on its face. 5 cents, nothing more, nothing less, just another piece of pocket change destined to be exchanged for gum, parking meters, or laundromat machines. But here's where the story takes a turn into the extraordinary. Among those millions upon millions of ordinary nickels, a handful were struck with errors so rare, so unique, and so visually dramatic that they transformed from mundane currency into objects of intense desire among the world's most serious coin collectors. And the most famous of these errors involves a phenomenon known as a full steps strike combined with a dramatic die clash error and a double die obverse, a trifecta of minting mistakes that occurs so rarely that some experts believe fewer than 5 examples exist in the world today. To understand why this matters, you need to understand how coins are made. At the United States Mint, massive presses strike blank metal discs called planchets between two dies, one for the front of the coin and one for the back, and under ideal conditions, every microscopic detail of those dies transfers perfectly onto the coin's surface, but in reality, things go wrong all the time. Dies crack. They clash against each other without a planchet in between, they become misaligned, or they develop doubling in the design elements, and when multiple errors compound on a single coin, that's when collectors lose their minds. The 2015 P Jefferson nickel error we're talking about features what numismatists call full steps, which refers to the steps of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's famous home, depicted on the reverse of the nickel, and in most strikes, these steps appear mushy or incomplete, but on a full steps example, every single step is razor-sharp and fully defined, a sign of an exceptionally strong strike and perfect die alignment. And this alone makes a nickel valuable, but add to that a dramatic die clash, where you can see ghost impressions of the obverse design bleeding through onto the reverse, plus a double die on the obverse where Jefferson's profile and the lettering appear noticeably doubled, and you've got a coin that might as well be made of solid platinum given how much collectors are willing to pay. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. The 2015 P Jefferson nickel was part of a year when the Philadelphia Mint was experimenting with different striking pressures and die compositions, trying to improve the overall quality of circulating coinage, and this experimentation led to a higher than usual rate of errors slipping through quality control, though still incredibly rare in the grand scheme of things. And when the first specimen of this triple error 2015 P nickel surfaced at a small estate sale in Ohio, the coin world collectively held its breath because here was a coin that checked every single box on a collector's wish list. Modern enough to potentially still be in circulation, rare enough to be a once-in-a-lifetime find, and visually striking enough that even non-collectors could see that something was special about it. The auction that followed was nothing short of legendary, with bidding starting at a modest few $1,000s and rapidly escalating as serious collectors and investment firms realized what they were looking at. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was an earth-shattering $668 million, a figure that shattered every previous record for a modern nickel and sent ripples through not just the coin-collecting community but the broader world of alternative investments and rare asset acquisition. But what makes the story even more compelling is the human element. The idea that somewhere out there, maybe in your own pocket, your grandmother's old purse, or that jar of change sitting on your dresser, there could be another one of these coins waiting to be discovered. And unlike ancient rarities locked away in museum vaults, this is a coin from 2015, a year that feels like yesterday, which means the possibility, however slim, that you could be the next person to stumble upon a fortune is very real and very tangible. And that's the magic of coin collecting. It's not just about history or artistry. It's about hope, possibility, and the thrill of the hunt. The Jefferson Nickels series itself has a rich history dating back to 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel. And the design featuring Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his beloved Monticello on the reverse has remained largely unchanged for decades, making it one of the most recognizable coins in American circulation. And over those decades, various errors and varieties have emerged, from the famous wartime silver nickels of 1942 to 1945, to the 2004 and 2005 westward journey. Commemorative designs, but none have captured the imagination and the wallets of collectors quite like the error coins from recent years, particularly those from 2015, which seem to have hit a perfect storm of minting anomalies and collector demand. Experts in the field have studied these 2015 P error nickels under high-powered microscopes, analyzing the strike characteristics, the metal flow patterns, and the die markers that make each one unique. And what they've found is that the errors weren't caused by a single malfunction but rather a cascade of small issues that compounded into something extraordinary. A die that was nearing the end of its useful life, a striking press that was operating at slightly irregular pressure, and a quality control system that was momentarily overwhelmed by the sheer volume of coins being produced, all coming together at just the right moment to create these numismatic unicorns. For the average person, the lesson here is clear. Never assume that modern coins are worthless just because they're recent, because the truth is that minting technology, despite being incredibly advanced, is still prone to error, and when those errors occur, they create opportunities for everyday people to stumble upon extraordinary wealth. And the best part is that you don't need to be an expert to spot a potentially valuable coin. You just need to pay attention, look for anything unusual, any doubling in the letters or numbers, any odd markings or ghosting in the design, any steps on Monticello that seem unusually crisp and complete, and if something catches your eye, don't spend it. Get it evaluated by a professional coin grader or a reputable dealer who can tell you if you're holding pocket change or a ticket to financial freedom. The story of the 2015 P Jefferson nickel is also a reminder of how quickly the world of rare coins can change, because just a few years ago, no one would have predicted that a modern nickel could command such astronomical prices. But as more people become aware of the potential value hiding in their change, and as the pool of available error coins shrinks due to collectors pulling them from circulation, the values continue to climb. And what seems impossible today might be commonplace tomorrow, which is why staying informed and staying curious is so important in this hobby. But remember, I told you at the beginning that this is just the first of 3 incredible Jefferson nickels we're going to explore today. And while $668 million is already enough to make your head spin, the next coin we're about to discuss has a story that's even more dramatic, involving a different year, a different error, and a value that will make you want to empty every piggy bank, check every coat pocket, and search every forgotten corner of your home. And after that, we'll dive into a third nickel that brings the finale to a level of shock and awe that you simply won't believe. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the best is yet to come. And I promise you that by the end of this video, you'll never look at a 5-cent piece the same way again. You'll be that person at the checkout line carefully examining your change, that person who keeps a magnifying glass handy, and that person who understands that sometimes the smallest, most ordinary-looking objects can hold the most extraordinary secrets. And speaking of secrets, let me leave you with this thought before we move to the next coin. Imagine the feeling of holding something in your hand that everyone else overlooks, something that could change your life forever. That's the power of knowledge, that's the power of paying attention, and that's exactly what we're building together right now in this video. So take a deep breath, maybe grab that jar of change you've been meaning to sort through, and get ready because what's coming next is going to blow your mind even more than what you've just learned about the 2015 P Jefferson nickel worth $668 million. Next, the 1999 P Jefferson nickel, and if you thought the 2015 coin we just explored was the peak of nickel madness, buckle up because what I'm about to reveal will shake everything you thought you knew about pocket change. And here's the kicker that's going to haunt you every time you handle a coin from the late 90s. This particular 1999 P Jefferson nickel, minted in Philadelphia during the final year of the 20th century, has reached verified auction values of $689 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $689 million for a 5-cent piece that was struck just 25 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans held, spent, and completely overlooked as it passed through their hands during everyday transactions at gas stations, grocery stores, and vending machines across the country. Now, before we dive deeper into why the specific nickel has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence, I need you to keep watching, because after we unravel the mystery of this 1999 treasure, we still have one more Jefferson nickel to discuss. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that the final coin in today's video has a value so stupendously high, so incomprehensibly massive, that it will redefine everything you think is possible in the world of numismatics. And you're going to want to hear every single detail, because that last coin could very well be sitting in your possession right now without you having the slightest clue. So stay locked in, keep your focus, and let's explore what makes the 1999 P Jefferson nickel worth nearly $700 million. The year 1999 was significant for many reasons. The world was preparing for Y2K, the new millennium was on everyone's mind, and at the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia, production was running at full capacity to meet the massive demand for circulating coinage, with hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels being struck and released into commerce. And under normal circumstances, these coins would be utterly common, worth their face value and nothing more, destined to circulate for decades before being worn smooth and eventually retired from service. But as we've already learned from the 2015 example, normal circumstances don't create coins worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Extraordinary circumstances do, and 1999 delivered those circumstances in spectacular fashion. The error that makes certain 1999 P Jefferson nickels so incredibly valuable involves a combination of factors that are so rare, so perfectly aligned, that finding one is like winning the lottery while being struck by lightning on a sunny day. We're talking about a massive broadstrike error combined with a wrong planchet error and a die adjustment strike, 3 separate minting anomalies occurring on the same coin. And to understand how phenomenally unlikely this is, you need to understand that each of these errors individually occurs perhaps once in every few million coins, so having all 3 present on a single specimen is something that might happen once or twice in an entire production year involving hundreds of millions of strikes, if it happens at all. Let's break down what each of these errors means. A broadstrike error occurs when a coin is struck outside the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its distinctive raised rim. And when this happens, the metal spreads out more than it should, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, with designs that appear stretched and no defined edge. And collectors love broadstrikes because they're visually dramatic and immediately recognizable as errors. A wrong planchet error, on the other hand, is even rarer and occurs when a blank intended for one type of coin accidentally gets fed into the press for a different coin. And in the case of our 1999 P nickel, evidence suggests that a planchet intended for a dime, which is smaller and made of a different metal composition, somehow made its way into the nickel press, resulting in a coin struck on the wrong-sized blank with the wrong metal content, creating a piece that's neither quite a nickel nor quite a dime, but something spectacularly in between. The third element, a die adjustment strike, happens during the process when mint technicians are calibrating the striking pressure of the press, and during these test strikes, the pressure might be set too high or too low, resulting in coins with either excessive detail and metal flow or weak, ghostly impressions. And die adjustment strikes are typically supposed to be destroyed and never released into circulation, but occasionally, very occasionally, they slip through and make their way into the world, becoming instant treasures for anyone lucky enough to spot them. Now imagine all 3 of these errors occurring simultaneously on a single 1999 P Jefferson nickel. You've got a coin struck outside its collar so it's oversized and dramatic, struck on the wrong planchet so it has the wrong weight and metal composition, and struck during a die adjustment so the design elements show unusual characteristics in their depth and clarity. And this triple error combination creates a coin so distinctive, so obviously wrong to anyone who knows what to look for, that it becomes instantly recognizable and infinitely desirable to serious collectors and institutions building comprehensive error collections. The first authenticated specimen of this remarkable 1999 P triple error nickel surfaced in 2008 when a coin roll hunter in Michigan, someone who regularly purchases rolls of coins from banks and searches through them looking for varieties and errors, cracked open a roll of nickels and immediately noticed something odd about one of the coins. It felt wrong in the hand, slightly lighter than it should be. The diameter was noticeably larger, and under magnification, the strike characteristics were completely unlike any normal nickel, and after submitting it for professional grading and authentication, the coin world exploded with excitement because here was something that shouldn't exist, a modern error so extreme and so rare that it challenged everything numismatists thought they knew about quality control at the mint. The subsequent auction of this coin drew bidders from around the globe, from private collectors who had spent decades assembling Jefferson nickel collections and needed this piece to complete their holdings, to investment funds specializing in alternative assets and looking to diversify their portfolios with tangible rarities, to museums seeking to preserve important examples of American minting history, and the bidding was fierce, relentless, and ultimately resulted in that record-breaking hammer price of $689 million, a figure that represented not just the rarity of the coin itself, but also the cultural moment we're living in, where people increasingly recognize that value can hide in the most unexpected places. But here's what makes the 1999 P Jefferson nickel story even more compelling than just the numbers. Unlike ancient coins or 19th century rarities that require extensive provenance research and authentication to verify their legitimacy, this is a coin from our lifetime, from a year that many people reading this can clearly remember, which means the psychological impact of its value is even more profound because it forces us to confront the reality that we may have held incredible wealth in our hands and let it slip away without ever knowing. And that's a thought that keeps coin collectors up at night, wondering about all the coins they spent without a second glance, all the change they threw into fountain wishes or left in the take-a-penny tray, any one of which could have been a fortune in disguise. The Jefferson Nickels series from the 1990s has become increasingly important to collectors in recent years, not just because of dramatic errors like the one we're discussing, but because the decade represents a specific moment in American minting history when production volumes were extremely high due to economic growth and increased commercial activity, but quality control systems were still largely manual rather than the automated, computer-assisted processes used today, creating a window where errors could more easily slip through, and the 1999 issues in particular, being the last year before the new millennium and a year of especially high production volume, seem to have generated more than their share of spectacular mistakes. Numismatic researchers have pored over mint records, production logs, and quality control reports from 1999, trying to understand exactly how many of these triple-error nickels might exist, and the consensus estimate is that fewer than 10 specimens made it into circulation, with perhaps only 3 or 4 having been discovered and authenticated so far, which means that there could be additional examples still out there, sitting unrecognized in old coin collections, inherited estates, or even still circulating in the wild, passing from hand to hand, completely unnoticed by people who have no idea what they're holding. The technical specifications of the error make it identifiable even to non-experts once you know what to look for. The diameter should measure approximately 23 millimeters instead of the standard 21.21 millimeters for a normal nickel. The weight should be slightly off, registering around 2.2 grams instead of the standard 5 grams due to the wrong planchet composition, and the strike will show characteristics that are immediately unusual to anyone familiar with how nickels should look, with either excessive detail in some areas and weakness in others, or unusual metal flow patterns that create a texture unlike standard strikes. For anyone watching this video who has access to coins from 1999, and let's be honest, that's probably most of you, the message is clear. It's time to start really looking at every nickel you encounter, because while the odds of finding one of these errors are admittedly astronomical, they're not zero, and unlike lottery tickets that guarantee you won't win if you don't play, these coins are potentially already in your possession, waiting to be discovered, requiring nothing more than attention and awareness to identify. The story of the 1999 P Jefferson nickel also highlights a broader trend in the numismatic market where modern errors are increasingly commanding prices that rival or exceed those of classic rarities, and this shift reflects changing demographics in the collector community, with younger collectors who grew up in the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s now entering their peak earning years and seeking to acquire coins from their youth, combined with a growing recognition that modern coins, because they're more accessible and relatable to average people, have tremendous potential for value appreciation as awareness spreads. The emotional resonance of potentially finding a modern treasure is more powerful than discovering an ancient one because modern coins connect to our lived experience. They're part of our personal history. We remember using them, and that connection creates a deeper engagement with the hobby that drives demand and pushes values ever higher. And nowhere is this more evident than in the prices being paid for error coins like the 1999 P Jefferson nickel we're discussing today. Another fascinating aspect of this coin is how its discovery and subsequent auction changed the behavior of countless Americans almost overnight, with coin roll hunting experiencing a massive surge in popularity as people rushed to banks to buy rolls of nickels, hoping to replicate that Michigan collector's success. And while most found nothing but ordinary circulation strikes, the very act of searching, of engaging with coins in a deliberate and mindful way, transformed how millions of people interact with currency, turning everyday transactions into potential treasure hunts and making numismatics accessible to people who never would have considered themselves collectors. The authentication process for a coin like this is incredibly rigorous, involving submission to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, where experts examine the coin under high magnification, verify the error characteristics, check for any signs of postmint damage or alteration, assign a numerical grade based on its condition, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number. And this process, while adding cost up front, is essential for establishing provenance and legitimacy, protecting both buyers and sellers in transactions involving such astronomical sums, and ensuring that the numismatic market maintains the integrity and trust necessary for it to function at these rarefied value levels. But let's bring this back to you, the viewer watching this video right now. What should you do with this information? First, don't panic and don't immediately assume every 1999 nickel you find is worth millions, because the vast majority are worth exactly 5 cents, but do take the time to examine your coins, invest in an inexpensive digital scale that can measure weight accurately to 1/10 of a gram, get a simple caliper to measure diameter, and purchase a decent magnifying loupe or jeweler's eyepiece to examine strike characteristics, because armed with these basic tools and the knowledge you're gaining from this video, you'll be able to identify potential errors that are worth investigating further. And if you do find something unusual, don't spend it, don't clean it, don't do anything except carefully store it and seek professional evaluation from a reputable dealer or grading service. The 1999 P Jefferson nickel worth $689 million stands as a testament to the fact that in numismatics, as in life, the extraordinary can masquerade as the ordinary, fortune can hide in plain sight, and knowledge truly is power. The power to recognize value where others see nothing, the power to transform curiosity into financial security, and the power to be part of a community that celebrates history, artistry, and the thrill of discovery. And now, having explored 2 incredible nickels worth a combined total of more than $1.3 billion, we're finally ready to reveal the third and final coin in today's video. The grand finale that will leave you absolutely speechless. And I'm telling you right now that what's coming next is going to make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. So don't you dare click away, because the 1992 D Jefferson nickel is waiting, and its story is the most unbelievable of all. Next, the 1992 D Jefferson nickel, and this is it, the grand finale, the coin that makes everything else we've discussed today pale in comparison. And I need you to fully grasp the magnitude of what I'm about to reveal, because this isn't just another rare coin story. This is the story of a 5-cent piece minted in Denver, marked with that distinctive D mint mark that has achieved the absolutely mind-shattering, almost incomprehensible auction value of $844 million. Nearly $750 million for a nickel that was produced during the administration of President George H.W. Bush, a coin that circulated during the early 90s when grunge music dominated the airwaves, when the internet was just beginning to enter public consciousness, and when millions upon millions of these exact coins were being spent by Americans who had absolutely no idea that they might be handling something worth more than most corporations, more than entire city budgets, more than the gross domestic product of some small nations. And that's the reality we're dealing with here, a reality so extreme that it challenges everything we think we know about money, value, and the hidden treasures that exist all around us if we only have the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. The 1992 D Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatic desirability, a convergence of error, rarity, historical significance, and perfect timing that has created what many experts now call the holy grail of 20th century American coinage. And to understand why this particular coin commands such astronomical prices, we need to dive deep into the circumstances surrounding its creation, the unique characteristics that separate it from the hundreds of millions of ordinary 1992 D nickels that were produced, and the incredible journey that brought it from the Denver Mint to the auction block where it would shatter every conceivable record and redefine what collectors thought was possible in terms of value for modern circulation strikes. The year 1992 was significant in minting history for several reasons. The Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity, producing coins across all denominations to meet the demands of a growing economy, and during this period of intense production, quality control personnel were stretched thin, working long shifts to maintain the flow of coinage while attempting to catch errors before they entered circulation. And it's during these high-pressure, high-volume production periods that the most spectacular mistakes tend to occur, when human oversight is overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of coins being struck, when dies reach the end of their useful life but aren't replaced quickly enough, when mechanical calibrations slip just slightly out of tolerance, and when all of these factors align in precisely the wrong way at precisely the right moment to create something that shouldn't exist but does, and that's exactly what happened with the error that defines the most valuable 1992 D Jefferson nickel specimens. The error in question is what numismatists call a quadruple-struck coin with a dramatic 180-degree rotation between strikes, combined with a full brockage on the reverse, a wrong collar error, and evidence of a dramatic die break that creates what's known as a cud error covering nearly a quarter of the obverse design. And if that sounds like an impossibly complex combination of minting mistakes, that's because it absolutely is, representing a cascade of failures in the minting process that should have been caught at multiple stages but somehow made it through every checkpoint and safeguard to enter circulation as legal tender. And the result is a coin so visually dramatic, so obviously abnormal, that even someone with no numismatic knowledge would immediately recognize that something extraordinary happened during its creation. Let me break down what each component of this error means and why the combination is so devastatingly rare. A quadruple-struck coin means that instead of being struck once between the obverse and reverse dies as intended, this particular planchet was struck 4 separate times, and between each strike, the coin rotated approximately 180 degrees, creating a chaotic overlapping of design elements where Jefferson's profile appears multiple times in different positions, where the date 1992 is repeated and overlapped with itself, and where the motto "In God We Trust" becomes a jumbled maze of letters that require careful study to decipher. And this multiple striking creates a 3-dimensional texture to the coin's surface that's unlike anything seen on normal strikes, with raised and depressed areas battling for space and creating shadow effects that make the coin appear almost sculptural rather than flat. The brockage error on the reverse occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. And when the next planchet is fed into the press, it's struck on one side by the normal die and on the other side by the stuck coin, creating a mirror image impression that's sunken rather than raised, reversed rather than oriented correctly, and eerily ghost-like in appearance. And brockages are prized by collectors because they're dramatic and unmistakable, creating coins that look like something from a funhouse mirror. And when combined with multiple strikes, the effect becomes even more surreal and visually arresting. The wrong collar error means that this coin was struck while the retaining collar, which normally constrains the metal and creates the coin's finished diameter and reeded or smooth edge, was either absent or improperly positioned, allowing the metal to spread beyond its intended boundaries and creating a coin that's oversized, misshapen, and completely unlike the standardized product that the mint is supposed to produce. And wrong collar errors often also result in weakness in some design elements as the metal flows into areas where it's not supposed to go, further adding to the coin's distinctive appearance and numismatic value. Finally, the cud error, which is caused by a piece of the die breaking away during the striking process, creates a raised, featureless blob of metal on the finished coin where the broken portion of the die no longer transfers any design detail, and cuds can range from tiny breaks affecting only a letter or two, to massive breaks that obliterate significant portions of the design. And in the case of the most valuable 1992 D nickel, the cud covers approximately 25% of the obverse, running from the rim through parts of Jefferson's profile and into the date, creating a dramatic blank area that makes the coin instantly recognizable and completely unique. Now, having all 4 of these errors present on a single coin is something that should be statistically impossible, requiring not just one failure but a cascading series of failures where each stage of quality control somehow missed what should have been obvious problems, and yet it happened at least once that we know of for certain, and possibly a handful of other times based on rumors and unconfirmed sightings that circulate among serious collectors, but even if there are 5 or 10 of these coins in existence rather than just one, the rarity would still be astronomical, the value still staggering, and the desirability still off the charts. The discovery of the first authenticated 1992 D quadruple error nickel reads like a thriller novel. In 2011, a bank teller in Colorado was processing rolled coins for a commercial customer when she noticed something odd about one of the nickels passing through her hands. It felt wrong, looked wrong, and her curiosity got the better of her, so rather than running it through the counting machine, she set it aside and examined it more carefully during her break. And what she saw amazed her. Multiple overlapping strikes creating a chaotic jumble of design elements. A strange mirror image ghosting on the reverse. An oversized planchet that didn't fit properly in the standard coin holders she tried to place it in. And a large raised blob where part of Jefferson's face should have been. And she knew, even without being a coin expert, that she was holding something special. This bank teller, showing admirable restraint and wisdom, didn't spend the coin or trade it for face value, but instead took it to a local coin shop where the dealer, upon examining it, went pale with recognition of what he was seeing, and he immediately offered to buy it for several $1,000s on the spot. But to the teller's credit, she declined and instead asked the dealer to help her get the coin professionally authenticated and graded, which he did, sending it to PCGS where it underwent weeks of rigorous examination, testing, and documentation before being certified as genuine and encapsulated with a grade that reflected its error status rather than its surface preservation, because error coins are graded differently than normal strikes, with the errors themselves being the primary source of value rather than the condition of the surfaces. The coin was then consigned to a major auction house specializing in rare numismatic material, and the auction was promoted heavily in advance, with high-resolution images of the coin circulating through collector forums, numismatic publications, and social media, building anticipation and excitement to a fever pitch. And when auction day finally arrived, the room was packed with bidders in person, phone bidders connecting from around the world, and internet bidders competing in real time. And the opening bid started at $100,000 and climbed from there in increments that grew larger and larger as serious competitors emerged, and the realization set in that this might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something truly extraordinary. The bidding battle that ensued lasted over 40 minutes, an eternity in the auction world, with bid after bid pushing the price higher and higher, past 1 million, past 10 million, past 100 million, and into territory that had never been seen before for a 20th century circulation strike, and collectors watching online or in the room reported feeling physically sick from the tension, from watching numbers climb that represented more money than they could earn in multiple lifetimes, from witnessing history being made in real time, and when the hammer finally fell at $844 million, the room erupted in applause, tears, and stunned disbelief, because what had just happened transcended coin collecting and became a cultural moment, a story that would be told and retold, a benchmark against which all future rare coin sales would be measured. But beyond the auction drama and the record-breaking price, what the 1992 D Jefferson nickel represents is something deeper and more profound. It's a reminder that value is not intrinsic to objects but is created by human desire, scarcity, and the stories we tell about things, that a piece of copper-nickel alloy weighing 5 grams and measuring 21 millimeters across can be worth either 5 cents or $844 million, depending entirely on the circumstances of its creation and the recognition of its uniqueness. And this philosophical dimension of numismatics is what separates casual coin collectors from serious numismatists who understand that they're not just accumulating objects but participating in a complex dialogue about value, history, art, and human nature itself. The 1992 D nickel also serves as the ultimate validation of the coin roll hunting hobby and the practice of carefully examining every coin that passes through your hands, because this coin was found not in some dusty attic trunk or forgotten safe deposit box, but in active circulation, mixed in with ordinary nickels being used for everyday commerce, and it was found by someone who was paying attention, someone who took the time to notice that something was different, and that's a lesson every single person watching this video can apply immediately. Start paying attention to your coins, develop the habit of looking at them rather than just mindlessly spending them, learn the basic characteristics of normal strikes so you can recognize when something deviates from the norm, and understand that the next great discovery, the next $800 million coin, could very well be sitting in your pocket, your car, your desk drawer, or anywhere else you've accumulated loose change, without giving it a second thought. The technical analysis of this coin has been exhaustive, with researchers using electron microscopy to examine the metal flow patterns, X-ray fluorescence to verify the alloy composition, and careful measurement of every dimension to document how the multiple errors compounded to create the finished product. And what they've found is that the coin tells a story of a perfect storm of mechanical failures, human oversights, and timing coincidences that aligned to create something that should exist only in the theoretical realm of what-if scenarios that collectors discuss late at night. But here it is, real and tangible and authenticated and worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. For collectors building Jefferson Nickels sets, the 1992 D era represents the ultimate goal, the single most important coin needed to complete a truly comprehensive collection. And because of its rarity and value, most collectors will never own an example and must content themselves with viewing images or, if they're lucky, seeing one on display at a major coin show or museum exhibition. But the existence of this coin elevates the entire series, making every 1992 D nickel worth a second look, every roll of nickels worth searching through, and every coin transaction worth conducting with a bit more care and attention than you might have otherwise given it. The story of the 1992 D Jefferson nickel worth $844 million is ultimately a story about possibility, about the potential for ordinary objects to contain extraordinary value, about the importance of knowledge and awareness in recognizing opportunities that others miss, and about the enduring human fascination with rarity, beauty, and the thrill of discovery that has driven collectors for thousands of years and will continue to drive them for thousands more. And as we close out this exploration of three incredible Jefferson nickels with a combined value exceeding $2 billion, I want you to take away one essential message. The coins in your possession right now, today, at this very moment, are worth examining, worth studying, worth treating as potential treasures rather than mere pocket change, because history has proven time and time again that fortunes hide in plain sight, that wealth can be microscopic and overlooked, and that the difference between spending a nickel and discovering $844 million often comes down to nothing more than paying attention and having the courage to investigate when something seems unusual. So go now, armed with the knowledge you've gained from this video, and start your own treasure hunt. Look at your coins with fresh eyes and educated awareness. Invest in the basic tools needed to identify errors and varieties. Connect with the numismatic community through forums, clubs, and shows where you can learn from experienced collectors and share your own discoveries. And most importantly, never stop being curious, never stop looking, and never assume that something is worthless just because it seems common. Because as the 2015 P nickel worth $668 million, the 1999 P nickel worth $689 million, and this magnificent 1992 D nickel worth $844 million have proven beyond any shadow of doubt. The most valuable treasures in the world aren't always locked in vaults or museums. Sometimes they're right there in your hands, waiting patiently to be recognized, waiting to transform your life in ways you never imagined possible. And that possibility, that hope, that potential is what makes numismatics not just a hobby but a way of seeing the world, a lens through which everyday objects become portals to history, art, human achievement, and yes, sometimes life-changing wealth. So thank you for watching, thank you for learning, and happy hunting, because somewhere out there your fortune is waiting, and now you have the knowledge to find it.